What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my unnamed podcast. I'm Ryan Malinowski, and the whole purpose of this podcast is to provide a space for any type of conversation to happen. So, oftentimes, that's going to be politics and ideology because we live in a world that is polarized on those things. So, I believe very strongly in having conversations with one another so that we can find common ground. The reason it's unnamed is because I literally had the urge to do this last week in light of a lot of news events. And yeah, I decided to start it and get it out there because that's a big part of doing something, not waiting around. How many times have we all had ideas that just sit on the shelf forever? So I am here to have conversations with people. If you are interested in joining the conversation, either online or offline, please hop into the chat or join the Discord so that we can have conversations there. My hope is to eventually have the ability to actually have this be like a talk show of sorts where people can call in. So I'm trying to figure out what that looks like and how to technologically implement that, but hopefully in the next week or so we'll be able to actually have some callers call in and talk and chat. So in light of good faith and having conversations with people, I did get a comment on the first episode of the podcast that I wanted to address here because it seems to make sense to address it here rather than put some long reply to the person on the actual comment. I can show what they said and kind of give a reply here, and hopefully we can continue to have a respectful conversation about it. I think they did bring up a few good points about something I said, so let's take a look. So here, as you can see, this is episode 1 for Charlie from 3 days ago, and I had Martin leave a comment. Thank you, Martin. If you're watching again, I appreciate the comment. But what he said was just chiming in to say, quote, fascism has always come out of the left side of the aisle is patently false. The inventor of fascism, Benito Mussolini, was a right-wing dictator. His protege, Adolf Hitler, was also aligned with conservative ideals and indeed waged an entire war against the Soviet Union to exterminate communists. I'd argue, we've seen more fascist behavior out of the Conservative Party over the past week. Censorship, getting people fired for their social media posts, attacking journalists and institutions, and strengthening of police state. All markers of traditional fascism. So much for free speech. Personally, I think the path to unification won't be found name calling, certainly not calling leftists un-American and the enemy, and instead finding common ground. There were certainly a vocal minority of people who celebrated Kirk's death and a large portion of leftists who only didn't feel sorrow for him, much the same as the right memed Trevor Martin and George Floyd, Paul Pelosi, or outright ignored the recent assassination of 2 Dem lawmakers. All right, so I agree with you. I misspoke. Fascism, what I meant to say was fascism has always come out of the left side of the aisle in recent history. So you're right. The origination of it, I agree, came out of the right and more of a dictatorial side type of fascism. But though in the past week the right side of the aisle has been very vocal and very frustrated with what has happened, angry, probably to an extreme at times, where we've on the right side of the aisle let our frustration and anger cloud our judgment in how we speak. I would say, though, the vast majority of time over the last decade, 15, 20 years, the fascism has come out of the left side of the aisle. Doxing, censorship in the form of using the government mechanism to actually censor right-wing people online. President Obama using the IRS to target right-wing organizations. In terms of attacks on journalists, so the things you brought up in the last week, censorship, getting people fired over social media posts, I mean, the left hates cancel culture when they're the ones being canceled, right? I would prefer we live in a world where we're not doxing people. In fact, I hate doxing. I don't like cancel culture. But I've seen a lot of people say that this is an attack on free speech. And actually, we're going to talk about Jimmy Kimmel coming up in the show as well. But it's not an attack on free speech if it's not coming down from the government. So um, I don't agree that that's coming out of the right. That's coming out of corporations making a decision on whether they want to back an employee or not with those types of things. I've talked on other shows before that my wife is a nurse. If my wife was making posts that said something along the lines of, I'm only going to give care to these types of people because I think that they are worthy, or if she was telling people online things that were just not true about medical information, then her employer has every right to say, you know what, we're not going to support this individual. We're not going to support this person by giving them employment. And that's the risk of free speech. So the left oftentimes conflates free speech, the ability to have free speech, with the consequences of our free speech. We all have the right to say whatever we want to, but there's consequences to saying those things. In terms of attacks on journalists and institutions, well, when journalists are actively misleading people, when institutions are actively misleading people, then yeah, we should exercise our right to speak. We should exercise that and speak up, and not just let a slim minority dictate propaganda essentially to us when it's not true. Strengthening of the police state. I'm not sure exactly where I see that. Does President Trump say some things in ways that I don't like? Oftentimes, yes. I don't think anybody would say that he is the greatest rhetorical orator of our time. Anybody who says that is kind of drinking the Kool-Aid. I, for one, am not drinking the Kool-Aid. But the guy says things. Yeah, everybody understands that Trump says things. That's kind of just a part of the whole Trump movement now. So when he says he's going to go into, which I'm assuming here, if I'm incorrect in my assumption about what you're referencing in terms of the police state, then correct me. But when he talks about going into Chicago, or he talks about going into different places like Baltimore and that type of thing, I don't think he has the authority to just unilaterally do that. He has to have a reason to go in with federal forces. The things he's done in D.C., the things he's talking about doing in Tennessee and Louisiana, he said he's got the support of the governors and in some instances the Democratic mayors. And in that instance, if the federal government is offering police force or offering some sort of assistance and the governor accepts it, there's nothing like fascist or authoritarian about that. That comes down to the individual. That's actually how democracy is supposed to work. The federal government comes in and says, hey, I've got help for you if you want it. And, if the Republican governors say, yeah, actually, we would love that. We would love to clean up our cities. Thank you for the help. That's not fascist at all. So I agree with you. The way I said that was incorrect. But my perspective is that the majority of the time in recent years, the censorship that is very prevalent with fascism, the wanting to take away the right to defend yourself, very prevalent with fascism. Most of the time in the last 15, 20 years, that has come out of the left, and that's what I meant to say. Personally, I think, so your last point here, personally, I think unification won't be found in name-calling, certainly not calling leftists un-American and the enemy, instead in finding common ground. There was certainly a vocal minority of people who celebrated Kirk's death, a large portion of leftists who only didn't feel sorrow for him, much the same as the right meme Trevor Martin, George Floyd, Paul Pelosi, and outright ignored the recent assassination of two Democratic lawmakers. So I'll touch on the second half of that first. I detest any political violence, right? So I agree with you. People are polarized, and we should not be polarized. And I agree that unification will not be found in name calling, but the difference between the left and the right in America is the right does not accept with open arms the white supremacists and the radicals and the extreme right. They are pariahs on the right side of the aisle. They are not accepted into common conversation. And that is a difference in kind with the left. The left opens their arms to leftists and those who would sow discord and even have political violence be celebrated and lauded. And the idea behind calling out our enemy is it is evil to applaud those things. And if we can't agree on that, then you're part of the problem. You're part of the problem. If you don't agree that it's evil to say that Charlie Kirk's death was a good thing, then you're part of the problem. That is evil in and of itself. And I'm making a moral claim to call them the enemy. They are my enemy. If they do not support the ideals of America and they do not want to find common ground, they are my enemy. Now, I've been clear before. The leftists are my enemy. The left is not my enemy. Liberals are not my enemy. Moderates aren't my enemy. Conservatives aren't my enemy. I consider myself to be moderate. I'm in the middle on a lot of things. The problem is because you've got these 5 segments. You've got the extreme left. You've got the left. You've got the moderates, the right, and the extreme right. Because you've got these kind of 5 categories of where you could fall on the political spectrum. And because the right has, for the most part, not allowed the extreme right to be a part of the conversation, you really only have 4 segments that are really accepted into mainstream discourse. That means the Overton window is shifted. So everyone who's moderate is more to the right. Everyone who's liberal is more to the right, because the liberals continue to just allow the leftists to control their party and their decision making and the way they speak and the making exceptions for allowing people to be violent and think that it's acceptable to do these things. Charlie Kirk's great crime was speaking his mind. That's it. He was polite. He was courteous. He allowed people with different opinions to come to the front of the line. So it wasn't just a applaud fest every single time where they were just having a echo chamber conversation. He went over political lines. He went into enemy territory, and he allowed people to have conversations as much as they wanted to. There were plenty of times where I saw videos of him where people said it was unfair because he was prepared to have conversations about everything, and he said, "Okay, well, go get a professor. Bring him here. I'll talk to the professor." Bring someone else who you feel is better prepared or on the same level. So he was always open to have a conversation, and that, I think, is where we disagree. Based on your comment, I think all of this is in good faith. Like, I would not call you my enemy. Obviously, I haven't had a conversation with you, but the leftist ideology is evil, and the leftist ideology is an enemy of America. And every single one of us who are believers in the American experiment should not want any of that in the country. So I really appreciate your comment. I will respond here, saying that I kind of put this at the front so that you can watch, but I do appreciate your comment, and yeah, thanks. It provided for some interesting counterplay here. I enjoy that, and I hope to see you again, Martin. Thank you very much. All right, so yesterday, my friend Emilio asked me about the 3i Atlas comment. So we're going to jump into that because this is what you guys asked for. And, this doesn't always have to be about politics. There's so many moments in between. There's so many threads that tie us together that are commonalities outweigh our differences. They really do. Right? The things that we agree on outweigh our differences. And it's only the extreme fringes that we are forced to fight on for things or for land area. I don't know what for. I don't like doing it. I'd rather be smoking a cigar with you guys or talking about a hiking camping trip we want to organize together, because in the real world, that's what happens, right? Friends come and they talk with each other, and when they disagree, times they say, okay, that topic's off limits. We're not going to talk about any of that anymore. But I really care about you. I really care about you, and I want you to be in my life. The only people who really don't do that are the leftists, again, highlighting the idea that they are all of our enemies. And the other thing too, sorry, this is how my brain works, but the other thing too, Martin, is that I do believe in redemption. I believe that people can turn from their ways and say, you know what, I was wrong, kind of like what I did today. you know, I should I should not have said things in that way. I was caught up in the heat of the moment. I was thinking about other things, and not about these types of deals, that they're not about these other things, and that made me say some things that I probably shouldn't have said. And I'm going to really think about that. Think about if that's something I want to be part of my worldview, if that's something that benefits society. Um, all right, so the 3I Atlas comet or interstellar object. So I asked Perplexity what it was. What's the significance of it? 3I Atlas is significant because it's only the third confirmed interstellar object ever detected passing through our solar system, following 1I. I'm going to butcher that. Uma and 2I Borsov. This rare object provides a unique opportunity to study material and processes from beyond our own solar system, offering direct evidence about the formation and composition of our other stars' systems. Okay, cool. So it's the third object that we've confirmed that came from outside of the solar system into the solar system. Nice. Why it matters. It carries chemical and physical clues about other planetary systems since its origins lie outside of the solar system. Observations indicate that dust and ice contents are similar in some ways to native comets, but also exhibit unusual compounds and hyperbolic trajectory, emphasizing both similarities and differences with local comets. Its highly eccentric, hyperbolic orbit, eccentricity over 6, confirms it is not gravitationally bound to the sun and is simply passing through at great speed, much faster than previous interstellar objects. Okay, cool. So it's moving very, very fast. Because interstellar objects are so rare, each one provides invaluable scientific data that cannot be gathered in any other way, essentially bringing samples of distant star systems to our doorstep. The broader scientific impact: chemical analysis is helping astronomers learn about the compounds commonly found in comets from other solar systems, testing planet formation models and theories about the distribution of organic molecules in the galaxy. The detection and analysis of 3I Atlas helps confirm that interstellar visitors may be more common than previously believed, with implications for solar system dynamics and galactic astronomy. Studying these rare objects gives astronomers the chance to compare our solar system's formation and contents directly to those from other systems, deepening understanding of cosmic evolution and diversity. Yeah, that's cool. It's neat that, as time goes on, we continue to get more and more technologically advanced, and we're able to look more and more at these types of things. I've always loved space. I loved watching Star Trek and Star Wars growing up. I know that they're not necessarily 100% accurate, obviously, on the science side of things, but one of my favorite shows in recent years was The Expanse. I thought it was really cool. It seemed much more accurate than any other space sci-fi oriented show I've ever watched. The one thing was, Emilio wanted to be a little contentious yesterday when he brought this up, and he asked me about, it seems like it turned towards Mars. So I asked again, Perplexity, is there anything unique about its course? Is it steady or has it changed? And if it has, what are the possible explanations for this? Essentially, it says here that it followed a strong hyperbolic unbound trajectory through the solar system with the eccentricity of about 6.143 and a retrograde orbit inclined roughly 175 degrees to the elliptic plane. So it's steady in course. There's no evidence that suggests dramatic changes or maneuvers. Thus, the comet's observed orbit aligns well with predictions and natural interstellar comet influenced mainly by gravity and typical cometary activity. So, no, it is not an alien spaceship. Right on. Cool. Well, thanks, Emilio, for bringing that up. I enjoy learning about new things. So, very briefly, this podcast is unnamed. I need help naming it. If you have any ideas, let me know. Again, the reason why I started this podcast was because I believe that we need to have conversations and talk we can't live in a world where we are afraid to share our opinions and have conversations, and that by the very mere instance of having a difference of opinion, we may be our lives may be at risk for it. That we may be shot, we may be killed, we may be harmed for saying words and having thoughts. Words and thoughts can change. Back when I was a kid, we were told sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me, right? And we're wrong. Our ideologies are wrong. Every single one of us have wrong views and beliefs about things. So it's important to be able to have conversations and disagreements in a respectful manner, to be able to find common ground, to be able to live in a society. If we want the country to stay together and we don't want it to be hacked apart and balkanized into tiny little countries, then we need to be able to do this as citizens. We need to find a way to protect the freedoms that we have here in America, and America is unique in the world. So I'm housing this under my app, which is called Niched. It's a new type of platform. I removed everything people hate about platforms in general, social media platforms. I'm calling it a human interaction platform because I removed the algorithm. So there's no one in the way between you and your data. I removed gatekeepers. So again, no one can stop you from learning or interacting with content on the platform. I put in a way for us to be rewarded for good content, and the hope is that it limits detractors and people who are not good actors on the platform, so that we can actually have conversations. In the real world, it costs us our time at the very least to talk to one another. And there's not really any consequences online for posting whatever thought happens to scurry across our minds. And then last, I wanted to provide a way for my users to become a customer, because I think it's egregious that social media uses us as their cattle and their product. And we don't get a say into the customization and how we see things. So if any of that interests you, all the socials are linked below. But you can go to resistthealgorithm.com to learn more. I'm having a massive update to the site so that I can give access to people who are like you and want and are interested to find a place online where you have total control. So this podcast is for you, and for us to have conversations. Likewise, Niched as a platform is for you and for us to be able to curate our online experience. So this podcast will continue to be sponsored by Niched, because it's my baby and I believe in it, and I hope many more people get to see the freedom that is available on a platform like Niched. So next, let's check chat. Anybody chatting? No one's chatting. There's a few people here. I thank you guys for being here. Thank you for hopping in. Let's talk about Jimmy Kimmel. So Jimmy Kimmel said some things. It was definitely misinformation. At the very least, it was disinformation if he intentionally did it. And he is not going to be on air anymore. I believe from ABC, it's that he will indefinitely be off the air. So this is the second late night host to lose their late night show. And I think it's important to talk about. I've seen a lot of people online saying, oh, so much for freedom of speech, this and that. Jimmy Kimmel should be able to say whatever he wants to say and not fear getting fired for it. And I disagree, and I'll explain why here in a minute. But let's watch and hear what he said. Unfortunately, the Jimmy Kimmel show took down the monologue from the 15th on YouTube, so I had to find it somewhere else. At least I believe it was taken down. I could not find it on Jimmy Kimmel's page, so it may have been hidden or something like that. But here's what he said.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at...
So I think that was for the most part, the thing that kind of led ABC to make the decision that they made. So if you don't know, if you're just online all the time and you're just, reading what's on X or just seeing what's on TikTok, you may not know that this was incorrect. If you're just a huge Jimmy Kimmel fan, which unfortunately Jimmy Kimmel has not been funny in a very long time. But if you're just a huge Jimmy Kimmel fan and those are the spaces, those are the type of echo chambers that you live in, you wouldn't know what the truth is about what he just said. So he said that over the weekend, essentially MAGA supporters were trying their hardest to rejigger the narrative about Charlie Kirk's killer, and that's simply not true. It's pretty. There's some pretty good evidence as to what the ideological beliefs were of Charlie Kirk's assassin. So I did ask Perplexity, what did Jimmy Kimmel say to get fired? So Jimmy Kimmel was taken off the air and his show suspended indefinitely, primarily because of controversial remarks he made about the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. In his monologue, Kimmel accused supporters of President Trump, the MAGA gang, of trying to portray the young man charged with Kirk's murder as anything other than one of their own, and the exploiting of the situation for political gain. This is if he believes this, the level of cognitive dissonance you have to have in order to believe that is astounding. I don't. He either didn't look into this or he just let his writers write whatever, and I'm sure he's said or will say things like, "Oh, it was only a joke. I didn't mean for it to be taken seriously or whatever." But it's also gaslighting to the highest extent. It's just flat out a lie. It's not the truth. So what did Kirk's assassin actually believe? What did he believe? Well, again, I went to my friend here, Perplexity. I like using AI for stuff like this, especially Perplexity, because Perplexity, you can see up here. Oh, I need to show you. Perplexity, you can see up here, there's 13 sources it's pulling from. And if we click on this, we can see what sources it's pulling from. NPR, okay, left-wing organization. The New Yorker, left-wing. The Atlantic, left-wing. New York Times. PBS, CNN. The New York Times again, right? Wikipedia, which anybody can go and edit. So, these are not just random places. These are large news sources. And what do they say? The ideology of Charlie Kirk's assassin, Tyler Robinson, is described primarily as leftist and pro-LGBTQ, particularly focused on the trans rights. Core details. Robinson reportedly targeted Kirk because he was tired of this hatred, referring to Kirk's anti-trans sentiments. Text between Robinson and his transgender roommate/partner, as well as statements made to the family, support the motive of opposing Kirk's view on LGBTQ issues. Robinson's mother told investigators that over the past year, he became increasingly aligned with pro-gay and trans rights positions, drifting away from his conservative family background. Officials in multiple news reports note that Robinson held a leftist ideology, according to Utah's governor, and evidence from legal documents. So it's pretty straightforward, right? The other thing I asked Perplexity, what did Charlie Kirk's assassin have written on his bullets, and what ideology do they point towards? The bullets used by Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin, Tyler Robinson, had various inscriptions reflecting a mix of digital, cultural, political commentary, and ironic or cryptic messaging. Some bullets featured phrases like, "Hey, fascist, catch," a reference linked to the video game Helldivers 2, which satirizes materialistic fascism. Another bullet had the phrase, if you read this, you are gay. I don't know why it put the slashes there, but I believe that's exactly what it said. LMAO, blending internet meme language and trolling. One bullet cited Ciao Bella, an Italian anti-fascist song that is also popular. Bella Ciao, an Italian anti-fascist song that is also popular among video gamers. So, you hop down here in the second paragraph. Nonetheless, officials and Governor Spencer Cox of Utah labeled Robinson's ideology as leftist, with his mother indicating he became increasingly pro-LGBTQ plus and left-leaning over the year before the shooting. All right. So Jimmy Kimmel just flat out lied. He may not have known he was lying. I'm fine giving someone the benefit of the doubt, but when you have a platform where millions of people are listening to you and focusing in on what you say, even in joking, you should not just have flat out lies. Like humor is found on the fringes for sure. I'm not offended by some good humor on the fringes, but to just straight outright lie about uh, what actually was the truth, it's the complete opposite. He said the MAGA group was trying to shift the narrative away from the truth about how he was clearly a right winger. Well, Jimmy Kimmel is actually doing what he's accusing the MAGA base of doing. He's trying desperately to shift the narrative away from the fact that, this young man who killed and assassinated Charlie Kirk was actually of the left. And look, I don't want to really be about left versus right. I'd love for us to find some commonality here over this. This should be a 9/11 moment. Pretty much everybody in America, excuse me, I misspoke. Everyone in America should be able to look at what happened to Charlie Kirk and say, you know what, that's wrong. It's un-American. It's not the country I want to live in. And instead, we have to be having conversations like this. A man who his great crime was speaking his mind and exercising the rights that he has, that are recognized under our Constitution, was assassinated because he said things and he wanted to have discourse with other people and he wanted to have conversations with other people. So to me, that's unacceptable. It's not good. It's not right. I do want to touch on this here. I've seen a lot of people talking about how what's happening with Jimmy Kimmel and people losing their jobs are, that's not free speech. That's not the government protecting free speech. Well, it's not the government who's firing people. The same people who are frustrated about people getting fired for posting on X or Blue Sky or TikTok or wherever they're posting these egregious things about the assassination or about anything else for that matter, that the company that employs them is not obligated to keep them on as employees. They're not obligated to do that. Employers have rights as well to decide what type of people they want to have employed. Now, that being said, it's the same people who years ago would just dox people that they didn't agree with across the aisle. And they would applaud the idea of doxing them. They would applaud the idea of people losing their jobs. So there's a double standard there. Do I think people should lose their jobs over this? I don't know. That's a hard question to answer because we've got multiple entities. We've got the individual, we've got the company. I think companies should be able to make a decision on whether they keep someone employed or not. I think that individuals should bear in mind that exercising their free speech has consequence. Things I say here may have consequences down the road. You may see me out in public and decide that you don't like me and don't want to talk to me. That's a consequence. You may see me in public and decide that you enjoy what I'm doing here and you want to talk to me more about things. That's a consequence too. But to say that this is an attack on free speech is just patently wrong. If it were the government coming and pressuring organizations to fire people based on what they said, then yes, I would agree with you. Free speech is under attack. But for a company to make the decision on their own to remove somebody from their employment, then yeah, no, I disagree. That's the right of the employer. Otherwise we would be in a completely socialist society where corporations are owned by the government and dictated who they can hire, and you would be in a lottery to get a certain type of career. You wouldn't get to choose. You would not have the ability to decide what you wanted to be. The government would tell you, oh, you're highly intelligent, you're going to become a doctor. Oh, you're not smart enough, you can't become an engineer. Oh, sorry, we don't trust you around technology, so you can't become a coder. You're a man, so you're too strong to be a nurse, right? I don't want to live in a society like that where it's dictated from on high and there's the combination of the free market and the government together. One other thing I saw a meme. I forgot to save it. I meant to, but I saw a meme that said, um, after Mr. Rogers died, you didn't have to say that, oh, you've got to read his quotes in context. Now, obviously, that's referencing Charlie Kirk's quotes that are being misquoted. Oftentimes, they're quoting something that he was attacking. Oftentimes, he's telling you what he thinks is wrong, and because he says the quote, like just like if I said, just like here earlier, I said, "Hey, fascist, catch." They then take that quote and they quote it as if that were something that he said. Now that's not all the time, but there is context around it. The reason why that is very reductive and it's not acting in good faith, in my opinion, is because Mr. Rogers said things like, "I hope you have a good day. I hope you be my neighbor," right? I'm old enough to remember Mr. Rogers. I loved the show growing up. The puppets were a little weird in hindsight, but I loved that show growing up. I enjoyed watching it. He had great messages for kids. You know, he also had messages that the people posting these types of memes wouldn't agree with. Like he said, a boy is a boy indeed, and a girl is a girl indeed, and there's nothing you can do to change that. So most of the people on the left nowadays would publicly disagree with Mr. Rogers. But what Mr. Rogers was saying was not very nuanced. He wasn't having debates across political aisles. He was just saying truisms for children that were very simple. So yeah, you can easily quote Mr. Rogers without it being taken out of context. Charlie Kirk, on the other hand, had political conversations with people, which are very nuanced most of the time. Anytime you have a debate with someone, it's nuanced. You have to use the ability of defining terms and even agreeing upon the definition of terms before you can even continue the conversation. That's part of the training for a debater. That's part of rhetoric training and logic training. So yeah, there's context. You have to give a long form context of this. I think that Christians who read their Bible diligently and understand ideas of hermeneutics understand this, that even the Bible's taken out of context at times, where you take one verse out and it means something completely different than what it was intended to mean. So I will say that I think context is important. Our free speech, as far as I can tell, is not under attack at the moment. If it is, I will be happy to call it out because I am a free speech absolutist. I think anybody should be able to say pretty much whatever they want. I don't believe in hate speech, and neither does the government because it's not a legal definition. And if an employer wants to fire you over what you said, that's the risk of exercising your free speech. So the last thing I kind of want to touch on today, and I think I'll do this every episode, is I'd like to read a portion of the Bill of Rights, talk about it very briefly, because we don't do things like this anymore. I think the last time I think the last time most people have read the Bill of Rights was probably, fifth grade social studies, that sort of thing. So I'm going to read the preamble and the first three amendments today and talk about them briefly. So, Congress of the United States begun and held at the city of New York on Wednesday, the 4th of March, 1789. The conventions of a number of states, having at the time of their adoption the Constitution, expressed a desire in order to prevent misconsternation or abuse of its powers, that further declaratory and restrictive clauses should be added, and as extending the grounds of public confidence in the government will best ensure the beneficent ends of its institution. Resolved by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, 2/3 of both houses concurring, that the following articles be proposed to the legislators of several states as amendments to the Constitution of the United States, all or any of which articles, when ratified by 3/4 of the said legislatures, to be valid to all intents and purposes as part of the said Constitution. Articles in addition to the amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America, proposed by Congress and ratified by the legislators of several states pursuant to the 5th article of the original Constitution. Amendment 1. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So there you go. Free speech. The federal government took free speech, religion, the right to press, the right of the people to peaceably assemble as the First Amendment to the Constitution, and they're saying that they're protecting it. Until there's a law, or there's talks of a law that change that, free speech isn't being infringed upon. There's no legal recourse for anyone against you. Amendment number 2. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Second Amendment is there to protect the first. If we didn't have this, then the government could just come in and willy-nilly take this stuff away. Maybe not willy-nilly. I mean, they legally they'd have to go through a process where, it would have to be ratified, which is a very difficult thing to do during polarizing times, which is exactly how our country was designed. It was designed to be a slow-moving vehicle. Amendment number 3, no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. So this was put in because the king came in and said that redcoats had to be housed in colonists' homes and that there was no recourse. There was no property ownership essentially then, right? If the government can come and say they can do whatever they want with your property at any point in time, you have to house soldiers, you have to house immigrants, you have to use your lawn for whatever, then you don't really own any part of it. Now, governments can take eminent domain, but they are supposed to justly compensate you when they do so. So I think it's important for us to go over these things. I think once we go through the Bill of Rights, I might go through a Federalist paper once a day. And then maybe the Anti-Federalist papers, and then anything else that we want to go over for founding documents. But that's all I have for today. I really appreciate everyone who's here, who's watching, who's hanging out. If anybody wants to talk about a topic, please hop into the Discord, put something up there. We'll talk about it tomorrow, right? Tomorrow's Friday. Absolutely. We'll talk about it tomorrow. I am going to take a weekend for myself, but we will be back Monday. Well, we'll be back tomorrow and then we'll be back Monday. So if you have anything you want to talk about, if you want to hop on and talk about a conversation, let me know in the Discord or on Facebook or social anywhere. I will see it. I will chat with you and we will figure out a way to have a conversation. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be about politics. It can be about anything. If you want to talk about your hobbies or whatever, I'm happy to have a conversation with you because I am interested in all of those things. If you have an idea for a name for the podcast, drop it in the comments below. Thank you all for being here. I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day and God bless.